Good morning. Welcome to our service from the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. I'm David Mix Barrington, your welcome leader this morning. If you are new or returning after a time away, we're glad to see you. Please feel free to fill out a blue welcome card, which someone will hold up, or which you can put in the offering plate later in the service. There's a link to an online version in the chat. We'll put you on our email list so you can receive information about all that we do. And visitors can go to the Ask Me sign at the back of the Great Hall, where a member of our Newcomers Connection team will be able to answer your questions. We strive to be a congregation that welcomes people of all ages, races, religious beliefs, backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, and abilities. We belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we are guided and inspired by its values and principles. One of our principles calls on us to journey towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a multicultural, beloved community through actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Therefore, we are moved to remember that those of us in our region live on the unceded homeland of the Pekumtuk, Nonotuck, and Western Nipmuc peoples. We acknowledge our responsibility to confront the legacies of dispossession and systemic racism that are part of our collective history. We also affirm and celebrate the many legacies that inspire us. We have drawing materials and other activities at the Soul Play table in the back of the Great Hall. Also in the back, we have hearing assistive devices and large print orders of meetings and hymnals. Restrooms are gender neutral and are downstairs. They can be reached through one of these doors. An elevator is available in addition to the stairs. Please see announcements in the order of meeting. Our guest minister today is Reverend Douglas McCusker, he, him. He is a retired Unitarian Universalist minister who served two congregations, UU Congregation of Rockville, Maryland, and the UU Fellowship of Fredericksburg, Virginia. Currently, he leads the worship service once a month at All Souls UU in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Reverend Doug is proud of his Latino heritage, and his multicultural upbringing informs many aspects of his ministry. Whenever he gets the chance, he leads groups in a mindful outdoor sensory immersion practice known as forest bathing. Communing with the more than human natural world is his passion and a key focus of his theology. Reverend Doug and his spouse Marie live in North Adams, Massachusetts. And we're here to celebrate, to reflect, and to support one another. It is good to be together. And now let's enjoy the prelude.
Let's try that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
It is so good to be here with you all on this beautiful Sunday morning, about a week away from spring, theoretical spring. I had a beautiful drive from North Adams through the mountains. There was snow in the woods. It really, really was beautiful, and I'm so glad to be here now with you. Our opening words come from Mahatma Gandhi. He says, "My idea of nonviolence does not admit to running away from danger and leaving dear ones unprotected. Between violence and cowardly flight, I can only prefer violence to cowardice. I can no more preach nonviolence to a coward than I can tempt a blind man to enjoy healthy scenes. Nonviolence is the summit of bravery. And in my own experience, I have had no difficulty in demonstrating to those trained in the school of violence the superiority of nonviolence. As a coward, which I was for years, I harbored violence. I began to prize nonviolence only when I began to shed cowardice." Now please join me in unison as we recite the words of the chalice lighting from Reverend Sarah Lawal in your order of meeting. Please rise as you are able. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all there is and all that is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force of love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames, we rise. As you are remaining standing, please join in our hymn from the Sing Out of Love, the UUA virtual hymnal. There are folks here that are going to help us because I believe it's the first time that we've done this. I sang it at GA, so I'm slightly familiar with it. It's called Joy in the Morning. The words are on the screen.
So it's time to greet one another, and please do that. Please wave to the people on Zoom. It is good to see everyone. If you are on Zoom, please remember to turn off your videos. And now the time for all ages.
Our story this morning is called The Children's Crusade, and it's an event that some of you may be familiar with. It takes place in 1963. What are we going to do? Asked Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the well-known American civil rights leader, as he sat with his friends at a meeting at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. King, who was trying to lead the black people of Birmingham in their struggle to end segregation, was worried that he and his friends were going to fail in their mission. Nevertheless, he rose from his chair at the front of the group. Who will demonstrate with me tomorrow in a brave attempt to end segregation? Who will risk going to jail for the cause?
You see, that often 400 people would show up for meetings like this one, but only 35 or so would volunteer to protest, and not all of these volunteers would actually show up to protest. Those who did would gather downtown and parade through the streets, carry signs, chant, and sing, sending the message that segregation had to end. In King's day, segregation meant that black people were not allowed to do the same things or go to the same places as white people. Black people couldn't go to most amusement parks, swimming pools, parks, hotels, or restaurants. They had to go to different schools that weren't as nice as the schools for white kids. They had to use separate drinking fountains, and they could and did get in trouble for breaking these rules. They weren't allowed to use the same bathrooms, and many times there were no public bathrooms at all that they could use. They weren't allowed to try on clothes before they bought them, like white people could.
And of course, black people didn't think this was fair. Some white people agreed. In the 1950s and 60s, many thousands of people worked together to end segregation. But in many places, especially in the southern part of the United States, segregation was the law. And if black people tried to go somewhere they weren't supposed to go, they could and did get arrested, or worse. In the spring of 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. went to Birmingham, Alabama, one of the largest and most heavily segregated cities in America, to bring people together to change the law. The people were very scared. The sheriff in Birmingham was named Bull Connor, and black people didn't know what Bull Connor might do to them if he caught them protesting. Dr. King had already been in jail once, and others were afraid to follow him. Besides, they weren't sure protesting would do any good.
Dr. King, seeing that no one answered his call, again tried to inspire the group. The struggle will be long, he said. We must stand up for our rights as human beings. Who will demonstrate with me? And if necessary, be ready to go to jail for it. There was a pause. And then a whole group of people stood up, Someone gasped. All the people who stood up were children.
If you are a child or consider yourself to be a child and want to stand up to protest, the adults told them to sit down, but they didn't. These were disruptors. These were protesters.
Yes.
Martin Luther King thanked the children, thank you, and told them he appreciated the offer, but that he couldn't ask them to go to jail. They still wouldn't sit down. They wanted to help. That night, Dr. King talked with a close group of friends about the events of the day. What are we going to do, he asked. The only volunteers we got were children. We can't have a protest with children. Everyone nodded, except Jim Bevel. Wait a minute, said Jim. If they want to do it, I say, bring on the children.
But they are too young, the others said. Then Jim asked, are they too young to go to segregated schools? No. Are they too young to be kept out of amusement parks? No. Are they too young to be refused a hamburger in a restaurant? No, said the others. Then they are not too young to want their freedom. That night, they decided that any child old enough to join a church was old enough to march.
The children heard about the decision and told their friends. When the time came for the march, 1,000 children, teenagers, and college students gathered. The sheriff arrested them and put them in jail. The next day, even more kids showed up, some of their parents and relatives too, and even more the next day and more the next. Soon, lots of adults joined in. Finally, 1,000 children were locked up together in a children's jail. There was no more room for anyone else.
Sheriff Connor had done awful things to try and get protesters to turn back. He had turned big police dogs loose on the people. He had turned on fire hoses and ordered the fire hoses to point the firefighters to point their hoses at the children and push them down the street. People all over the country and all over the world saw the pictures of the dogs and the fire hoses and the children, and they were furious.
And now the white people of Birmingham began to worry. All over the world, people were saying bad things about their city. Even worse, everyone was afraid to go downtown to shop because of the dogs and the water hoses. So they decided they had to change things. A short time later, the black people and white people of Birmingham made a pact to desegregate the city and let everyone go to the same places.
Today, when people tell this story, many talk about Martin Luther King Jr. We should also remember the thousands of brave children and teenagers whose courage helped to defeat Bull Connor and end segregation in Birmingham and the rest of the United States. Now you can clap.
And now we'll invite our children and youth who are going to do some activism downstairs to come on down.
Go now in peace, go now in peace.
I'm Rebecca Curzon, co-moderator of the Coordinating Council, and today's surprise Social Justice Minute has a very simple message. Here's my Norma Ray moment. And it says vote. We need your vote to select the next recipients for Share the Plate when we send half of our plate collections out into the world to do the good we want to see. In the Sunday News and the Next Beacon, you'll see the link to our online ballot, which uses ranked choice voting to select the top 3 vote getters. So vote by March 27th, and thank you.
Welcome to today's guided meditation for courage. Let us begin by taking a comfortable seated position with your spine nice and tall and your feet supported on the earth, on the ground. I invite you to gently close your eyes or soften your eyelids as you gaze at a single point in front of you. You may rest your hands in your lap or on your knees, whatever's comfortable. Take a nice, slow, deep breath in through your nose. With each exhale, let your shoulders drop away from your ears, releasing any tension and any stress you've been holding on to. Take another nice, deep, slow breath. And an equally slow exhale. Inhale and exhale. Let go of all thoughts and begin to observe the inflow and the outflow of your breath. Notice how soothing your breath is. Take a moment to place your attention in your heart and focus on today's mantra. You can even say it silently to yourself after I recite it. I am resilient, strong, and brave. I breathe in courage and breathe out doubt. I am resilient, strong, and brave. I breathe in courage and breathe out doubt. Think of a time when you were scared to do something, but you did it anyway. Allow whatever images, thoughts, memories, or feelings to come up as you continue to repeat your mantra. I am resilient, strong, and brave. I breathe in courage and breathe out doubt. Notice any sensations in your body that resonate or shimmer as you sit with these memories. I am resilient, strong, and brave. I breathe in courage and I breathe out doubt. I am resilient, strong, and brave. I breathe in courage and breathe out doubt. I am resilient, strong, and brave. I breathe in courage and I breathe out doubt. I invite you now to please bring your awareness back into your body as you breathe in and out. Take a moment to rest, inhaling and exhaling slowly and deeply. Whatever came up today, embrace it fully. And when you feel ready, you can gently open your eyes and look around at this gathered community. Sometimes the most challenging opponents we face live within us. When we look with honesty inside our own hearts, that is where we find the self-belief and courage that we seek. So keep growing and keep loving. This week, our beloved congregant, Craig Dreesen, suffered a close family death. His younger brother, Mark, died from a sudden massive heart attack. This is a tremendous loss to the Dreesen family and to the world at large. let's take a moment of silence to hold Craig, Diane, and their family in our spiritual care as they grieve the death of Mark. May all who knew him and were touched by Mark's grace be held in the gentle, loving embrace of this congregation. Amen.
Our generosity makes everything we do possible, and it helps us support organizations and movements in the greater community. Half of the proceeds of each week's offering support these societies' operating budget, and half are shared outside our walls. You may mail in a check, donate online, or put your contribution in one of the plates that the ushers will now pass. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Comes from the Christian scripture, 1 John 3:16, verses 16 through 18. We know love by this, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for one another. How does God's love abide in anyone who has the world's goods and sees a brother or sister in need and yet refuses to help? Little children, let us love, not just in word or speech, but in truth and action. I had a vivid dream once when my daughter was about a year old. She and I were on a dock feeding ducks that were gracefully swimming in the water. Suddenly, the dream shifted to my daughter, who was in a little boat all by herself, drifting away from the dock. Storm clouds appeared and the wind picked up, making the water choppy and menacing. She had an expression of terror on her face as she drifted away. And then I woke up. You see, I felt totally responsible for her. She belonged to me, and it was my job to protect her. The weight of that responsibility must have welled up inside me and found its release in that nightmare. I lay there in bed thinking about how much I loved my daughter and how I would do anything to keep her safe. But I also felt guilty for not jumping in the water to save her. It was a dream, of course, but it made me think of whether I was willing to risk my life for her or anything. Risk is often associated with daredevils and thrill seekers. The real danger, we're told, is a life of boredom. The battle is between the bland and the bold. When I was younger, the daredevil Evel Knievel was a celebrity. Does anybody remember Evel Knievel? Yeah. He would jump over school buses through flaming hoops in a motorcycle. With every successful jump, he had to keep raising the level of danger, or he risked fading from pop culture. His last stunt was an attempt to jump the Snake River Canyon on a rocket-propelled motorcycle. The jump failed, but he somehow survived, and so did his fame. We're talking about him now, about 40, 50 years later. In our story this morning, we looked at risk from a different perspective. Those children of Birmingham and the adult civil rights leaders were willing to risk injury, incarceration, and ultimately their lives for equality, dignity, and justice. They demonstrated tremendous courage in the face of danger. James Baldwin wrote, "To act is to be committed, and to be committed is to be in danger." He places commitment, not thrills, and at the center of attention, of the center of action, For him, the ones to admire are not so much the daredevils, but the dedicated souls. He suggests maybe what's worth the risk is not the exciting life, as we've been told. Maybe it's the faithful life. From this perspective, the important question about courage and about life is not, are you willing to jump off, but are you willing to jump in? Not, are you willing to put yourself in danger, but are you willing to give yourself up for something bigger? Not will you be daring, but will you stay true? Giving ourselves over to something greater than ourselves doesn't have to mean risking our lives. There are probably only a few things that mean so much to us that we would consider dying to protect them. The ultimate sacrifice of one's life is by its very nature an act of supreme selflessness. Because if you die, you can't reap the benefits. But even if it never comes to that, just by taking the risk and being willing to accept the consequences requires us to transcend our instinct of self-preservation for societal preservation. Self-preservation for societal preservation. That's a level of connectedness and love beyond our ordinary mundane existence. As you know, our nation is currently experiencing a level of state-sponsored violence not seen since the 1960s, when people protested for civil rights and against the war in Vietnam. This time it is coming from the federal government, by legions of masked thugs in the name of immigration enforcement. We are witnessing marauding gangs of unmarked federal police grab people out of their homes, their workplaces, and off the streets simply because of the color of their skin. Then they whisk them off to black sites hundreds of miles from their home, and in many cases, children are being rounded up in this dragnet. As the current administration moves further down the fascist and totalitarian abyss, they are surveilling citizens with artificial intelligence and advanced databases, converting massive warehouses into prison camps, and openly discussing nationalizing or even shutting down the midterm elections. And this is not hyperbole. It's happening before our very eyes. This cruel show of force is meant to shock the public and sow fear and despair so that they can act with impunity. But guess what? It's not working. The government has been confronted with a determined resistance consisting of ordinary people whose love and sense of community has ignited their civic duty to protect and love their neighbors. Now, I know I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. I'm sure you've seen the images and the citizen reporting on the social media. This is not a top-down organized movement of resistance, but grassroots, self-actuated outpouring of mutual aid that has no center that the government can attack. It started in Los Angeles, then Chicago, Charlotte, and eventually Minneapolis, where the level of violence by ICE and Border Patrol agents became exceedingly lethal. 3 U.S. citizens so far have been killed, many wounded, and that's not counting those who have died in the prison camps. But it has not deterred the thousands of people willing to lay down their lives and their physical safety for their neighbors. As we have heard in the reading from 1 James, let us love not in word or speech, but in truth and action. We typically don't want to consider our death. In our secular culture, death is shielded from us. Youth and physical vitality are touted as the goals of good living. Death is seldom seen anymore. Recently, I spoke with a friend a couple of hours after she witnessed the death of another person while serving as a hospice volunteer. She was still processing what had just transpired. Life is so precious, and it's such a mystery that to see it end in another sentient being gives us a chance to pause and to step out of our own dramas. I wouldn't begin to describe what she was feeling because I could never know. But I thought I saw a mixture of awe, sadness, and peace in her eyes. It's ironic that facing one's mortality or witnessing another's death opens our hearts and our spirits to the depths of life. I once was a chaplain at the National Institutes of Health in Washington, D.C. The patients there were called volunteers because they were participating in experimental trials of new drugs and therapies. Often, their cancer could not be treated with conventional options. I often heard them say that their situation helped them become more compassionate to the plight of others and less concerned about themselves. For many people, their illness provided them a liberating perspective, which opened their eyes to things that were more important in their lives. While I was there, I met a young man in his 20s. He was fit and trim, but inside his body, his cells had run amok, and they were causing him great neurological pain. He was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease that had only been identified several years before that. He agreed to be the first person to test a new protocol to treat his disease with a bone marrow transplant. He realized that the treatment brought great risks, but he had this tremendous, generous attitude about using his condition to help others. He even told me that he felt blessed to be in such a position. His small Baptist church in North Carolina, where he lived, was completely invested in his healing, and he was in theirs. I visited him on the day of his transplant, and he told me that his church community was doing a prayer marathon to send him positive energy so the stem cells could take hold and give him a brand new immunity system. While he was getting prepped for his transplant, he asked me if I could help him find a nonprofit organization near the hospital that served unhoused people. His church had created a foundation in his name, and he was hoping to bring the congregation to the big city so that they could directly minister to the unhoused people in the streets. This altruistic young man had connected with his congregation, the plight of the unhoused, and the future of medical science. But don't get me wrong, he wanted to live and get well, and yet he had grasped a greater purpose to his life than just his survival. He was committed despite the dangers to his life. I'm going to go way back to the first 2 centuries of the Christian church. People risked persecution, even death, if they weren't willing to renounce their religious faith. The Roman authorities generally let them practice their religion in peace, but they required that every citizen offer sacrifices to the pagan gods to maintain harmony and good relations. However, because the Christians believed that they would suffer punishment in the afterlife if they prayed to other gods in this life, they refused. They saw it as a supreme test of their faith. Many people were even willing to die rather than to break the vows of their religion. The Romans considered them to be crazy fanatics. But to the Christian community, those who were put to death were venerated as martyrs. They became the superstars of the early church. Their example of complete commitment served as a courageous example to the rest of the followers. And eventually, it became counterproductive for the Romans to put these people to death because their martyrdom only strengthened the resolve of the Christian church. Then fast forward to the 16th century, Unitarians in Europe were persecuted by the Catholic authorities for similar reasons. In some kingdoms, whole villages were sacked and Unitarianism was driven underground. In Transylvania, it was accepted as eventually Unitarianism was accepted as one of the official religions. And in 1577, after the death of the Unitarian king John Sigismund, restrictions were eventually placed on Unitarians, even though they continued to thrive. Francis David, the Unitarian Bishop of Transylvania, was a big proponent of religious tolerance and the reformation of Catholic doctrine. In his writings, he explored questions regarding the Last Supper, infant baptism, predestination, and even the deification of Jesus. He preached his heretical ideas from the pulpit. And this got the attention of the new rulers of Transylvania. They gave him several warnings to cease and desist, but he persisted and was eventually arrested and tried for the crime of religious innovation. Religious innovation. he was found guilty, and he was condemned to prison, where he died several years later. Francis David was committed to the free and responsible search for truth and meaning despite the danger to his life. We are here today because of the courageous actions of countless people throughout history who were willing to defy misguided power and confront evil in the name of justice, love, and compassion. There may be some among you who joined the military or became law enforcement officers to serve your fellow citizens. You took your oath of service knowing full well the dangers of this profession, and yet were willing to risk your lives so that you could protect freedom and security in your communities. But throughout history, there have been clergy, soldiers, and police who have unconsciously served institutional power in the name of persecutors. To buck the system and risk expulsion, even when they know something is wrong, takes a lot of courage and conviction. The image that comes to mind is that iconic photo of the unidentified man known as Tank Man. He stood in front of a line of menacing tanks that had been dispatched to put down a protest in China's Tiananmen Square in 1989. That took tremendous resolve in the name of peace. But we usually don't think about the soldier who was inside the tank who made a conscious decision to stand down. He could have easily followed orders and crushed the protester, but instead, he took the dangerous risk of saving a life rather than taking one. It is good to uphold the examples of historic figures who risked their lives in the pursuit of an ideal. But let us remember that deep down, they were ordinary people, just like us. In every instance, they wrestled with their conscience and found a moral center that drove their decisions. We too have this capacity to revere the greater force of life above our immediate safety. And this doesn't make us heroes. It makes us humans. Whenever a person gives birth to another human being, they risk their life for that baby. It's been done billions of times, and yet each instance is a sacred sacrifice of love. Paradoxically, death is a powerful motivator and an arbiter of life. Our own mortality is a window into our soul. Only when we accept death can we truly live. What is it about life that compels us to take risks for people who we don't even know? Maybe it's related to the awe that my friend experienced when she sat with someone as the life force left that body. Perhaps it's our innate sense of empathy and interconnection that surfaces whenever we place ourselves in the shoes of another. Or maybe it's a subconscious awareness and gratitude of the risk that others have taken on our behalf. You know, kind of like passing a torch. Whatever it is the embodiment of placing love at the center. The kind of love that defines our true nature and connects us with the spirit of life at the core of our existence. Deep down, we are all capable of abiding in that love despite the risks to our material self. So what would it take for you to risk your life for your family, your religion, your country, for the oppressed and the marginalized? Would you willingly risk your life for the pursuit of science? For peace? Or to alleviate suffering in the world? I truly believe that we all have someone for whom we are willing to risk our lives, or something that means so much to us that we would rather see it thrive than live in a world without it. When the time comes that each of us must make a choice, may our consciences be clear, our motives just, and our actions true, because future generations are depending on us. Que así sea. May it be so, and may we be among those who make it so. Amen. Please join us in spirit or body as you are able, and rise to join us in the song with the lyrics posted on the screen. What kind of love, from our UUA virtual hymnal, Sing Out Love. What kind of love? What kind of world, excuse me. What kind of world?
Patient in it, sort of like in Blue Boat Home. So you may catch it. There's a little eighth rest that's in the middle of it. That so we'll sing it through once here. So.
These are the words from the Tao Te Ching, verse 33, the sacred book of Taoism, translated by Stephen Mitchell. Knowing others is intelligence. Knowing yourself is true wisdom. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. If you realize that you have enough, then you are truly rich. If you stay in your center and embrace death with your whole heart, you will endure forever. So go now in peace. Serve the world and return in love.